Good morning. I'm Joshua Ball from Richland Road Church of Christ. I want to thank you for stopping here this morning to watch this video. This is another video in our series entitled Challenges Faced by Christian Men Today. This particular video was designed for our teens, our teen group, specifically the young men in our teen group. So I appreciate anybody who's willing to take the time to watch this video. This will be the fourth lesson in this particular series, and this lesson is entitled "Men Don't Have Friends." So one of the challenges that are faced by Christian men today is they lack that true, meaningful relationship with other men, and there is a photograph of the lesson outline and notes that is attached to our Facebook page, either right before or right after this video. So take time to download that and print that out if you'd like. And one of the first questions listed on there for you to consider is, how many close friends do you have? Most people will say, well, I've got 4 or 5, or I've got 10 or 15, or, if they want to look at their social media platforms, it could be higher numbers than that. So I challenge you to list them. How many of them would you consider close friends? And then the next question on that list gets even more personal. It says, how many of them could you count on in a serious personal crisis? So take the time to think about that for a minute. How many of the people on your first list could you count on in a close personal crisis? And then the final question before we get into our series was, how many of those people would you invite to church? So as we take the time to consider that men don't have friends, there are 5 particular areas I'd like you to consider when we take a look at this challenge that Christian men face today. The first one is that the first problem listed in the Bible of men was not necessarily sin, but solitude. At each step of the way when God was creating the world, He pronounced everything was good. When He finished creating something, He said it was good. But then once He created Adam, the next statement kind of startles you. If you read it, it says that this is not good. And what is not good is that man should be alone. That's Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Now this was before the fall. Before sin had entered the world, Adam was not yet complete. He needed something. Some versions call it a helpmeet. Some versions call it a companion. And then, of course, this is where Eve is created and they are brought together. What he needed was social. He needed a social connection with someone. He needed to not be alone. So what does this show us? Although men's deepest problem is sin and idolatry, our first problem was social isolation. Therefore, even today, this world filled with society, Proverbs warns us that the one who isolates himself breaks out against all sound judgment. That's Proverbs 18, verse 1. That is why we cannot stand this social isolation that we're experiencing today. Number 2, friendship is the theme of the Bible. The Bible tells the story of creation and a destroying of a friendship, the ultimate restoration of a true friendship, our friendship with God. See, in the beginning, Adam and Eve enjoyed the fullness of that friendship, but their sin led them into hiding. And we have been hiding behind our sins ever since that time. Yet God is in the forgiving business. He is working hard to restore our true friendship with Him. He restores that friendship he restores a friendship with himself as he did with Enoch and Noah, who were noted to walk with God. See, that was the Hebrew way of expressing friendship with God. They would say these people walked with God. And that particular expression is found in Genesis chapter 5:24 and Genesis chapter 6:9. And Abraham was called a friend of God in Isaiah chapter 41 verse 8. Moses spoke with God face to face as a man speaks with his friend in Exodus chapter 33 verse 11. God drew near to all who called on him with true faith. And then Jesus came and is the great friend of sinners, befriending all who trust him. He came to lay down his life for his friends in John chapter 15, verse 13 through 15. Now, all those who were befriended by God are brought into communities in friendships at church. We can now befriend others through God as Christ befriended us. So the Bible as a whole theme is friendship. Our friendship with God was broken and destroyed, and he has been working diligently to restore our friendship with him, our relationship with him, ever since. All right, number 3. Proverbs is a practical guide to finding true friendship. Proverbs gives us wisdom for living. It gives us the words we need for building quality relationships. And it doesn't just address relationships in general, but it also particularly involves friendships. For example, it teaches us what to look for in finding true friends. Look at Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 22, 24 through 25. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. It also shows us why loyalty is important in a friendship. Proverbs 18:24, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. In chapter 19, verse 6, many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is the friend of one who gives gifts. Proverbs has a lot to say about how we live our lives in different aspects and ways that we can use this wisdom specifically in our relationships with other people. One of my favorites is, do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family, and do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. Proverbs shows us one thing that is most damaging to our relationships: spreading secrets. Chapters 16, verse 28, a perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends, which is close to chapter 17, verse 9. Whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. Loyalty is one thing that close friends count on. Can they count on you to be there when they need you as loyalty? And also, can they count on you to keep their privacy? Can they count on you when it's important for you to not spread rumors or gossip? And Proverbs makes that apparent. All right. Number 4. True friendship is more like a covenant than a contract. See, we're often very selfish when we call somebody a friend or select somebody as a friend. We befriend them as long as there's a benefit that we receive. But like a contract, when the relationship doesn't give us what we need, well, then it's time to leave. But the Bible shows us that real friendship is more like a covenant than a contract. Proverbs teaches us once again that there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. It also commands us, do not forsake your friend. It warns us about the fickleness of fair weather friends. In this contract that we have with our friends, it's not what we receive, but what we can give our friends. We find that evident in the church. When we attend church and we're there for our friends, not only at church, but other close, deep personal relationships, it's more about serving that other person than it is being served. And Jesus showed that when he washed the disciples' feet. He clearly counted them as friends and called them friends many times. So when he takes the time to serve them, he didn't expect anything in return. And that kind of relationship with your friends shows your true spirit. All right. Finally, number 5, friendship thickens church community. In this particular time of social isolation through COVID-19, we have this increased isolation because that's what's called for when we're fighting this virus. But our society has been socially isolating for a long time. In the age of social networking through digital platforms, we spend so much time on our cell phones interacting with many people, but men lack meaningful connection with true friends. In short, we're in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. But what if our church felt like communities of spiritual life and love? Every church is equipped with all the resources we need for our community to have deep relationships with each other. It's our heritage as Christians. Look at the early church in the book of Acts. These churches were fulfilling the ideas of friendship. Look at Acts chapter 2, verse 42 through 47, and Acts chapter 4, 32 through 35. The Apostle John refers to fellow believers in the churches as his friends in John chapter 3, verse 15. Every local church can be surprising and welcoming center of friendship, of true close friendship. So our churches give us the ability to not only demonstrate that friendship, but to practice it as well. All right. Finally, research shows the dire state of male relationships. There's a research company called Beyond Blue that discovered 25% of 30 to 65-year-old men had no outside immediate family member that they could rely on. Let me restate that. They had no one outside their immediate family that they could rely on as a friend. Even where men have friends to spend time with, one study showed that 97% of men agree that making time for their friends is essential, but the majority, 85% of them, struggle to find enough time for their, quote, man time with their friends. 2 weeks ago, we discussed that men have a greater demand on their time than just a generation or two ago. Loneliness has been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and the progression of Alzheimer's disease. And one study found that it can be as much of a long-term risk factor as smoking. In fact, isolation and loneliness increase the risk of premature death 26 to 32%. And we've already discussed that as we get older, we have more responsibilities, and those responsibilities pushed our time with our close personal friends further down our list of priorities. Career-driven, family-focused, and health-conscious men are crowding their lives with commitments. We all have commitments. As a result of these pressures and competing priorities, the time available for men to kick back and relax with their friends has begun to disappear. So, for our physical and spiritual health, but also for the good of our families, our workplaces, our communities and our churches, we must make time to spend with our friends. But more importantly, as Christian men, we need to guard ourselves and make quality Christian friends. We discussed in the first lesson in this series that men need other men as companions because in Proverbs we're told iron sharpens iron. Our friends hold us accountable, not just in our spiritual walk, but how we behave at work, how we treat our wives, how we treat our children. They simply make us better people as long as we are diligent in making deep personal relationships with good Christian men, and then not become selfish in that relationship and serve our friends as much as they serve us, with no expectation of anything in return. In short, they make us better people. I hope to spend some quality time with my friends from church very soon. Stay safe and pray for the day coming soon when we can all assemble together and worship our Lord. Thank you.